Recently, there has been some amazing inspirational role-playing games that have come out, and I really wanted to talk about, well, what are some of those games throughout history that's truly changed what we defined as amazing role-playing? Something that's truly stuck with us through the years because it inspired us, it motivated us, and it has that nostalgia factor because we keep talking about it. So let's talk about some of these amazing games that's truly changed during that time what we thought was great gaming. Hi, I'm Anthony.
And I'm Roland.
And welcome to Twin Dragons. Welcome to our channel where we discuss everything role-playing.
So what game to you was something that truly changed the experience in the role-playing video game world?
There are many games out there, but the one I'm probably gonna land on, which I've been a fan of, since we were kids, is the Final Fantasy series. Like, the Final Fantasy series has truly created a evolution when it comes to role-playing games. Throughout every iteration, they brought something new, changing, pushing forward storytelling, animation, complexities in the story, and all the way up until which one is probably the most talked about still, which is Final Fantasy VII, right? And of course, there's many Final Fantasies that came afterwards, but a lot of people think of Final Fantasy VII with the nostalgia because that one, in that time, truly changed what we believed when it came to storytelling, animation, even those polygons. Like, to us, that's like, it was brand new. It was immersive, right? It was 3D, right? So Final Fantasy was it for me. Final Fantasy VII, like, that one was a big one.
Yeah, I mean, the Final Fantasy series as a whole truly pushed the envelope when it came to storytelling, right? It brought in a lot of it, brought in a mixture of science fiction, fantasy, and it used even the elements of that to actually increase its storytelling, which is, a fantastic thing. It's something that really doesn't happen as often at that time. I think back to Final Fantasy IX, right? A beautiful game, a different direction in the animation, but one that was beloved by many, right? And it actually enhanced the storytelling, right? It actually, you felt more like it was it was more fantasy-like, it made it feel more fantasy because of the actual art direction that they took versus just polygons of just people, and they were just people walking around doing our fantasy thing, but it was more cartoony, right? Which made you think of, like, this is a wonderful, like, weird world out there, that you got to explore. And even to the later Final Fantasy series, where they actually started telling stories that most people didn't even ask for or really know they wanted. Like, I actually enjoyed Final Fantasy 15, right? It's the bro story, right? A group of guys. And I like how many role-playing games and video games you have where it's just a couple of guys just truly just being together and, like, really bonding and friendship. It's like you never get to
Driving in a car,
just going on the road. I mean, was it the greatest Final Fantasy? No, it wasn't. But at the same time, it told a different type of story, which we never really got to experience too much of. And I do appreciate them for that. So,
I love it.
Outside of how many times you get to see Cup of Noodles, outside of that, everything else was fine for the game.
So think about, like, the Final Fantasy series. Like, which one was your favorite?
American 3, Japanese 5, Final Fantasy. That was just the story behind that, story of Terra and all those companions and all their individual stories. Like, you actually got to, you knew everybody's backstory, right? And you got to experience their backstory. As you go through the main story, you got to get more pieces of everyone's backstory and learn more about them and what makes them complex characters. And that truly made for a more enveloping game when you have, like, more interesting characters like that. Even though other Final Fantasies have where they really deep dive into individual characters. I think the scope of how many characters they had, and you were able to deep dive in so many of them and actually care about a lot of them, really told something about that story.
You know, the that game actually also, I believe, truly challenged what we thought about what a villain is capable of.
Oh yeah, memorable villain.
You know,
if that'd be like a whole different video.
we would create a whole video just talking about
like different villains,
villains, and the villainy of the main antagonist of the game.
You know, I like when you have a game where the bad guys actually win, right? Mm-hmm. And you're now the rest of the adventure is just trying to the apocalypse already happened. Now you have to survive the apocalypse and then try to hopefully bring the world back into the light after the apocalypse, right?
That was amazing storytelling.
Very amazing. So,
an honorable mention before we move on, I wanted to talk about and just mention the online Final Fantasy games, both Final Fantasy 11 and 14, where it's a story that continues to evolve and doesn't end. It has multiple story arcs through different expansions, but truly continuing to push new ways of storytelling that truly envelop a fan base.
I think when it comes to MMORPGs, I think the Final Fantasies have done a better job of truly wanting to immerse their fan base and their player base in a greater story compared to others. I know that the big ones like WoW and stuff are out there, but I would argue that the actual developers are more concerned about telling a better story when it comes to the Final Fantasy Onlines than any other MMOs. So I'll put that out there.
You sounded so sad about it.
I am sad.
Why?
Well, it's because Final Fantasy XI was probably one of my favorite MMORPGs, and if there was a game you're like, hey, give me a list of your top 5 games that if you can go back in time and start all over again, and it's the first time you ever got to experience it, Final Fantasy XI would probably be in the top 5.
So continuing the conversation of role-playing games, well, when it comes to role-playing video games, what is for you, that video game that you're like, man, that truly changed the game? Like the scene, the time.
I would have to give the nod to probably the Old Republic games, Star Wars Old Republic, as well as the Mass Effect games, right? Where when the developers started in making, I mean, there has been games with choices, right? And especially if you go like way back in the day, like text-based games and stuff like that. It's existed. Yeah, it's existed, right? Like where you made choices, but they were so limited in their responses to your choices, where now I think that the golden age, I think, started with the Star Wars, the Old Republic, as well as like the Mass Effect games and stuff like that, where we have a new type of storytelling. And the storytelling is immersion, right? Immersion through player choices. And more than just adding to the vast complexity of the different choices and stuff you have, they actually, and choices have meaning, right? But they also, a lot of these games actually created this good and evil duplicity, where you could do good and you can do evil things, right? Some games reflect like either the way you look or how the story ends up because of how your choices you make of good and evil, but it gives you that freedom, right? It lets you have that sense of freedom, and that's what we've been truly looking for. I think of more recent games like the Baldur's Gate 3, right? And why it was so popular is because it harkened back to that time of games where narrative choices was at the forefront of the creation of these games, right? Where the developers put that up front as part of like the biggest part of their game, and a lot of the audience appreciated it. They love the choices, they love the complexity, they love the replayability that it offers. It allows them to play the game over and over again, no matter how good a story is on a single player game. Once you do the story once, I mean, sure, great story, lovely story, and you play at least one more time. maybe a third time, and that's pretty much it. You're kind of done after that, right? Like, okay, I've played it enough. But with these games like the Knights of the Republics and all the way up to Baldur's Gate 3, that the overwhelming amount of options you have and how it differs so vastly from playthrough to playthrough, even like just making like one different decision could vastly change so many things down the line, that it really increased the replayability of it, and that added more value to the game, and that's what players really appreciated for those kind of games.
So I think a choice, it truly defines what role-playing is, right? Because role-playing gives you flexibility. It's about making your choices and something actually happening with those choices, and not just being a very surface level choice where it makes no impact. But man, that's right. Like, those games are what really drove forward role playing, narrative, the choices, and I think it's something that developers are continuing to push even further in technology, and how deep they can make these choices go, and the ripple effects and the impacts of them.
Developers are actually taking notice, right? When we give these games the highest of praise and all our money, they truly take notice that just making simple generic trash is not sustainable, at least in the long run. So,
yep. And we talked about some great games, ones that throughout time have really pushed both graphics, storytelling. I think if
at least to us,
yeah, absolutely. But trust me, there's a lot of people out there who believe the same way we do. But to name a few, that's just a few. There's so many out there. One game recently, which made me interested in wanting to talk about this topic, is a game that I just finished playing, Clair Obscur, Expedition 33. Man, we talk about storytelling in its finest. When you tell a story that goes beyond just face level of what a story is, when you start bringing emotional depth into storytelling, which truly impacts you and how you feel, like that, and when it moves you, like, that's great storytelling. When you have games that are pushing the boundaries of integrating the theme of loss into their game, or what does it mean to survive, or to really rely on the person next to you, right, to even move forward when there didn't seem like there was any hope. Like, when those games with that amazing storytelling happen and truly immerse you and move you and make you feel these, like, all these things, to me, that's something that's really changed and it's pushing something forward when it comes to storytelling. Of course, graphics, music, combat system, is definitely
that's the choice.
That's a choice thing. Like, some people prefer certain types of combat systems and stuff like that. But when we talk about graphics, music, emotional depth, storytelling, like that kind of narrative, to me, it's like, man, I am super excited to see where role-playing games go next.
There's so many games out there that everyone truly feels like is genre-breaking or game-changing the whole playing field. And there's a lot of games out there, right? And it's all to perspective. Like, how did you feel about that game, right? These are just the games that we felt that were our picks for something that changed the genre for at least us, if not for the rest of the world in the industry. So, how about this? You let us know in the comments down below. What games do you believe changed the role-playing industry or genre?
Or what really moved you and created an impact that you're still talking about to this day. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to our video and our channel, as we have a lot more content coming out soon. Until then, see you next time.